Hello everybody and welcome. Today I want to talk about another guitar method book. It is Mel Bay's Modern Guitar Method. Now, if you look into method books these days, you're going to find that they come in various parts. So you'll see, I'd say as few as 2 books, and I found one series that was actually divided into 10 books. So you're going to find method books out there that have various parts to them. This in particular, this Mel Bay's Guitar Method, has 7 parts, or 7 books that are involved. Actually, they're divided into grades, so you have 7 grades that you're working with. Now, this series I've used for a really long time. It's great for sight reading, learning to read on the guitar through many positions. It really gives the student a lot of examples. Anytime a topic is covered, there's a lot of music to be read and a lot of examples to help solidify the topics that are introduced. Now, when you are shopping for this particular series, you're going to find that it exists in 2 different incarnations, we'll say. One is the original, which is, it's 7 books still, but it's smaller. There are only 40 to 50 pages per book. And then there's the expanded edition, which is the one you want to go for, which that's more like 95 to over 100 pages per book. So you're getting a lot more exercises, you're getting a lot more examples. You have the same amount of topics, but the topics are more solidified with the examples that you're given. Like I say, you get a lot more of them. It's hence the name, the expanded edition. So that's the one you want to go for. Now, dividing this into 7 parts has apparently worked very well because it's been very successful. I think that it's basically pretty much exactly how you want to do it. When you're looking at the first grade, for instance, you're really only looking at a couple keys. This is the the intro to the guitar for most students who get into this. There's no tablature there, by the way, just as an extra note. It's all notation, all seven grades. So anyway, this first grade, you're going to get into obviously C major, A minor, G major, and E minor, and that's as far as you're going to go as far as the keys are concerned. Now, with each key that's introduced, and this goes for all 7 grades, you're going to get some chords that are most used in those keys, and those chords are going to be the 1, 4, and 5 of each key. That's really how they will approach it. As you go through these grades, you're going to get into grade 2, which will give you, for instance, 6/8 time. So you're going to change timing a little bit. Not just stick with 4/4 or 2/4, something like that. And that's how the progress goes. You're going to have more keys. You're going to have different rhythms to work with, more complex rhythms as you go. Time signatures are going to be, of course, a little more complex, and so on. Now, I'm going to divide this into 2 parts. You're going to have grades 1 through 4, and then grades 5, 6, and 7. And I'm doing this really for 2 reasons. One is because of the topics that are covered. When you get to grade 4, actually once you finish grade 4, then grades 5, 6, and 7 are kind of like on a higher plane of the topics that you would study for guitar as far as their complexity, how advanced it goes. And that's something to keep in mind. The other reason is because nowadays, you can still buy each book separately, or you can buy sort of a complete edition, which is divided into 2 parts. It happens to be part 1 is 1 through 4, and part 2 is 5, 6, and 7. Just in case that might be the route you want to take. Completely up to you. So now, just to continue on with the first 4 grades here, as you get into grade 3. I've noticed things get a little more complex as far as, if you're playing with a pick or even playing fingerstyle, because you can study with a pick as it's written, or you can, play fingerstyle throughout this series of books. It works well either way. It's more written for plectrum or pick style, but I've had students go through this series. I myself went through this series, fingerstyle, and it worked just fine. So anyway, grade 3 is a little more difficult as far as that's concerned. I would say the difficulty level picks up once you move from grade 2 to grade 3. Grade 4 is really more of the same. You just have more keys, and you start moving into higher positions. So you play up to position 9 in this book, and you're going to play up to as many as 4 sharps when you're using this. And and as far as the flats are concerned, you're going to be working with. Let's see if I can remember that. I think it's 4 flat. No, it's 3 flats as well. So 4 sharps and 3 flats. Each book here also will start with a review. So you may get through, like let's say in grade 1, you get up to reading in 1 sharp, for instance. That's G and E minor. And then in grade 2, you're going to have a C major review where you go back and you're playing in C major again. You're playing without any sharps or flats, and then you continue on from there. So anyway, now let's go back to the grading system here. Like I said, with grade 4, you get up to position 9, and you have many keys to work with here. And to me, from what I've seen and from what a lot of students will want to do, just in general, it seems like once you get past grade 4, once you've played through grade 4, you're pretty well good to go as far as playing, any sort of, the pop music that you may want to play. If you want to go back and play some older rock or whatever the case may be, it seems like, grade 4 has pretty well gotten you ready to read through that sort of thing, because you have the higher positions. There aren't going to be a ton of pieces out there that you want to play, or that I've seen students want to play, that are written with 7 sharps or 6 sharps or 6 flats, something like that. I mean, you're going to run across that, but it's just not quite as common. So once you've played through grade 4, you're pretty well on your way to being able to do whatever you want. But still, you go through grade 5, 6, and 7 with this particular method. Now, what is there? Well, in grade 5, you start getting introduced to chordal harmony. So you have chordal harmony studies there, and you're going to have reading that's more complex along the lines of playing just etudes with full chords. So that starts earlier. It starts in grade 3, but it gets more complex. It gets heavier as you go. So you're going to have a lot more chordal etudes and chordal, not quartal, studies. You will have chordal harmony studies as well, but there will be a lot of chord-related etudes throughout 5, 6, and 7. Now, one of the interesting things, too, to keep in mind if you're going to use this series is, like I said, it's great for reading, no matter what style of guitar you are interested in or your student is interested in. It's great to learn how to read, but it does start to push more toward being able to play jazz. So, this is definitely the way you want to go if you want to read and your goal is to eventually then get into jazz. So this is a great series to work with if you want to push on to, like the Levitt books or Baker books, things like this. Those types of method books, this really gives you a good foundation. And there's, just enough theory involved there, especially when you get to the higher 3 grades, that you're really going to know what's going on. You're going to be ready to go and have a good foundation to study more of your theory in jazz, to play jazz, and things along those lines. So that's how I see it as far as progress throughout the series and then beyond the series. So with that in mind, like I said, I've played through this. I've had students play through this, and it's worked really well. Actually, Just as an aside here, what I mentioned in the last video when talking about the Carcassi method, I said that the very beginning of that maybe was a bit of a jump for the beginning student. It's all of a sudden you're thrown in the deep end of the pool. And I mentioned in that video that I will typically use another guitar method book to get the student prepared to then continue on with the Carcassi method. It's generally this book that I'll use because this is a very good way to learn how to read as much as you need to be able to read to get through the Carcassi method, or at least start the Carcassi method. Now, I've spoken its praises here. Now, are there any cons? Well, I would say the cons to using this are just a couple, but first and foremost, I would say that when you're just getting started in this music, grade 1 does have some older melodies that are when it was written, they were intended to be popular melodies that the student would already know, and then they would play something and they'd say, okay, great, I've heard this melody before, now I'm playing it. Or at least if I don't know how to read it that well, I know what should come next, and then I can figure it out. But of course, that has not been changed, so nowadays those same melodies are there, and I have a lot of students that'll come in, they're varying ages, and they'll play through this, and I'm like, so have you heard this before? Have you heard this particular melody? And they've not heard any of these before, so I'd say that's one con. So if the student hasn't heard these melodies, it can get a little bit boring. So that's why, as a teacher, you'll have to just, give some supplemental material, some other songs to sort of keep the interest going in order to get them to progress into the next, grades and so forth. Because then if they're able to read, well enough when they get into the other grades, the higher grades, then of course it's more fun and it becomes interesting that way. Another con I would say is the print size, because I've compared this to other method books and it seems the size of print is smaller in these books or in this series than in other method books. So that's another thing to keep into consideration here, so it might be a little more difficult to read for some people, so just keep that in mind. And let's see, any other cons that I can think of? Maybe it depends on your student. I would say, as far as if there are any other cons, because I know I've had some students who will start reading through this and maybe it will get slightly boring just because the melodies are primarily, they're arranged by the same people, and it's Mel Bay or his son Bill Bay, so you're going to have the same ideas that you're playing through. Now, these are going to be arrangements also. If it's not music that's written by Mel Bay or by Bill Bay, there'll be arrangements of maybe Chopin or whoever else. Carcassi, there are Carcassi pieces in here that are arranged for pick style guitar and so on. But you're going to get a lot of that same type of arrangement and maybe some of the same style of pieces. So there can be a little bit of monotony there. But once the student gets far enough, I haven't seen that happen. It's normally grade 1, but I think we've all seen that where you have a student in using grade 1, and they're going to get a little bit bored because either the reading is just something they don't really want to work on, or it could be something that like I said earlier, these pieces are not really the most familiar. So they're just kind of sitting there saying, well, what am I playing this stuff for? I don't know what this is. I'd rather play what I'm hearing on the radio or what, something that's more familiar to me. So that's, again, something else to keep in mind. Now, anything else that I can say about this series itself? I don't think there's really too much. I've used it for many, many years, and I recommend it. But as a teacher, just if you haven't used all 7 grades before, or maybe if you've never even looked into this, maybe you've approached it a different way, I would give it a look through and just see for yourself if it's something that you'd be interested in using. I think it works great. What I want to do next, I'm going to be doing a video on a music festival that I'm going to be attending next week. That's going to be in Brazil, so I'll have a lot of a lot of good stuff to show you there. But what I'll do as far as the Mel Bay Modern Guitar Method review is I'm going to be talking about the supplements that come, not with the books, but that are available for these books that were written that will work with each grade. There are a lot of supplements out there, but you just have to be careful with, the listing of what's there, because some of them are available, some of them are not. Some of them are available with slightly different titles, that kind of stuff. So I'll go over all of that here in the next few weeks in another video. So if you like what you see here, subscribe, hit the like button, please comment. Tell me what you think about the Mel Bay Modern Guitar Method, if you've used it, if you love it, if you hate it, if you're lukewarm on it, whatever you want to say about it. I'd love to get into a discussion with you about that. So make sure and comment. And let's see, I think that's about it for today. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for another video soon.